Welcome to our lesson on histograms, lesson 18-5. Tonight you're going to be learning about histograms. A histogram is a graph that shows frequency within an interval. An interval is the time between two events. So let's take a look at the heights of black cherry trees. This is a histogram. The first bar there shows the intervals between 60 to 65. All of the heights that fit between 60 and 65 fit in that first bar. The second bar is 65 to 70. So all of the heights of the black cherry trees that fit in between 65 and 70 fit into that bar, and so forth as it goes up. A histogram is a special kind of bar graph that shows frequency within an interval. For example, a histogram could show types of bicycles and the number of each sold in October. Key vocabulary: a bar graph, a chart that shows the comparison of information by the lengths of regular bars. Interval, the time between two events or a space between two objects. Histogram. A histogram is a special type of bar graph that shows frequency within an interval.
For math class, we each had to use a histogram to graph a set of data. Sam chose to use the height of 23 of his classmates. He knows he needs a frequency chart, but he's having trouble getting started. Let's help him out, step by step. First, identify the lowest and highest numbers in the data set. You'll use this information to create an appropriate scale. The shortest person is 4 feet 4 inches tall, and the tallest person is 5 feet 6 inches tall. So we know our scale has to go from 4 feet 4 inches to 5 feet 6 inches. Next step is to pick intervals that make sense for the heights. If we use 2-inch intervals, we'll have 5 intervals. That's a good number of intervals. It won't be too many or too few. Now we can make a frequency table with the intervals. Count up the frequency for each interval. Okay, so there are 2 people who fall in the first interval of 4 feet 4 inches to 4 feet 6 inches. 5 people who are in 4 feet 7 inches to 4 feet 9 inches. 4 people who are between 4 feet 10 inches and 5 feet. 7 people who are in 5 feet 1 inch to 5 feet 3 inches. And 5 people who are in the 5 feet 4 inches to 5 feet 6 inches interval. Now we're ready to set up the histogram. Use the frequency chart to help. The intervals go along one axis, and the frequencies go along the other axis. We'll put the frequency, or number of people, on the y-axis. The intervals will go along the x-axis. Remember, those intervals are 2 inches. Label each axis correctly. Okay, so we'll write number of people on the y-axis. Height goes on the x-axis. Draw the bars in the graph according to the frequency chart. Remember that there are no spaces between the bars in the graph. Okay, so the first bar should go to 2 on the y-axis. The next frequency is 5, so the second bar should go up to 5. The third bar should go up to 4. There are 7 people who measure in the 4th interval. And finally, the 5th bar needs to be at 5. Voila! The histogram is complete. Finding the right interval can be a little tricky. Guess and check is a good strategy to use. Look at your data to decide on intervals that make sense given what you want to show on your histogram. That's where a frequency chart can come in handy. Let's look at that last histogram using different intervals. You can see that 2 large intervals, such as 6 inches, don't show the same level of detail. On the other hand, two small intervals, such as 1 inch, show more information than Sam needs. Pizza day is always a popular day at lunch. During which hour were the most pizzas sold? You got it! The correct answer is 12 to 12:59 p.m. 120 slices of pizza were sold, which was more than during any other hour. How many slices of pizza were sold between 10 and 11:59? Nice! The correct answer is 110 slices. If you add 30 and 80, you get 110.
All right, let's take a few notes here. Take out your notebook. Label it Lesson 18-5 at the very top. 2 column notes, so draw on your line. Our first note is going to be a histogram. What was a histogram again? Remember, a histogram is a graph. That shows frequency. Within an interval. Draw your line. We have one last definition we're going to write down for tonight. I am going to go on to the next page. I would like you to just continue on in your notebook. Our last definition for tonight is interval. Interval was the time between two events. I hope you have a great night. I will see you tomorrow where we will be talking about some more histograms.